Now the topic is major language group of the world. There are six major language groups of the world. First one is the Indo-European. Second one is the Sino-Tibetan. Third is Niger-Congo. Fourth is Austronesian. Fifth is Afroasian. Sixth is Dravidian. Indo-European language group. I have already discussed details with several videos with the Indo-European language group. The main language are the Celtic, Italic, Germanic, Tocharian, Tocharian, Hittite, Balto-Slavic, Armenian, Albanian, and Indo-Aryan or Indo-Iranian. Here I would like to mention that Sanskrit is a main descendant of Indo-Aryan or Indo-Iranian language group, and Vedic literature is the ancient literature of that is the ancient literature of the Indo-European dialect. So, straightforward, we are moving towards the Sino-Tibetan language group. Sino-Tibetan language group is the second largest language group of the world. Various script is used here. Thai, Chinese, Burmese are the main language of Sino-Tibetan language group. Main branch of the Sino-Tibetan language groups are, first one is the Chinese and second one is the Tibeto-Burman. Most of the cases, two types of script has been used here, oracle bone and logograph. What is logograph? Sometimes symbols used as a script, just like a hieroglyphics. For example, for the symbol of sun, to write down the sun or write down the word tree, then we use the symbol as a tree as a symbol of a sun. So use of a symbol to express the language as a script is known as logograph. Chinese script, rather Sino-Tibetan script, is very similar to oracle board and the logograph. Those are the branches of those are the branches of Sino-Tibetan language group. Main branches were Tibeto-Burman and Chinese. Among the Tibeto-Burman, here the Kamrupan, Himalayas, and Barik. Okay, those are the Nazi. Those are the main branches of Sino-Tibetan language group. Sino-Tibetan language group normally it's a language of the Himalayan plateau. It's a language of Tibet plateau. Tibet plateau is a part of Himalayan plateau, and this language group area covers the few riverine zone. For example, Bengali language associated with the deltaic part of river Ganga. Similarly, Sino-Tibetan language group related to the river basin of Yolo River Basin, Yantang River Basin, Mekong River Basin, Brahmaputra riverine area, Salon River Basin area, and Iravati riverine area. It's a river of the it's a language of the Himalayan plateau. Okay, and next one is the Tibet Burmese language. It's covers the vast geographical area, part of China, Tibet Plateau, India, and the adjacent zone of the Himalayan Plateau region and part of the peninsula of Southeast Asia. See, in most of the cases, western part of India is experienced by the impact of Indo-Aryan, rather Aryan language group, rather Indo-European language group, and all the language are descended from the Sanskrit. But the eastern part of India is mostly influenced by the Sino-Tibetan language group. The Garo Boro language of Assam is directly descended from the Sino-Tibetan language group. Naga language of Nagas of Nagaland are the descendant of Sino-Tibetan language group, and the people of the Tibet plateau and the various dialect of Sikkim, that is Lepcha people speaking in a Sikkimese language, and the Rai language, all that's the dialect are the descendant of the Sino-Tibetan language group. There are most probably 17 types of 70 types of dialect which are the descendant from Sino-Tibetan language group, and the northeastern part of Indian state practice that language. Those are the descendant of Sino-Tibetan language group. And Sino-Tibetan language group used separate types of script. Suppose such an example, Lepcha language used Lepcha script, Tibetan language used Tibet script, Burmese script used by the Myanmar people. Chinese script are basically the symbolic character or logogram. Ladakh people or Sherpa people used the Sikkimese language, that is also the descendant from Sino-Tibetan language groups. Tamangik, Boro, Garo, Koch, Naga, Burmese, Dima, Lepcha, all this the language prevailed in the northeastern part of India are the descendant of the Sino-Tibetan language group. So here be clear, western part of India, North India and Central India dominated by the language of Indo-European language group, the Sanskrit, and the descendant of the Sanskrit language. But the eastern part of India is dominated by the Sino-Tibetan language group, the language descent from the Sino-Tibetan language. Now come to the second one, Niagara-Congo language. This language is basically the practice in colloquial conversation and writing scripture and writing script come in the end of 19th century. Niagara-Congo language is the mainly used the Latin language, Latin script, just like A, B, C, D. And the vast tract of Africa, that is the southern and eastern part of the Sahara Desert, Tanzania, Nigeria, Zimbabwe, Congo, Kenya, Uganda, Angola, Ghana, a vast area, people of a vast area used this language as in colloquial conversation. Austronesian, Australia and Polynesian. Polynesians island, which are the island of the Pacific Ocean, southern part of the Pacific Ocean. Out of Australia and New Zealand, all the southern part of island of the Pacific Ocean are familiar with the Austronesian language group. Most Philippine, Madagascar island and the southern part of the Australia and northern part of Australia, most of the island are familiar with that type of dialect. Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Taiwan also follows the Austronesian dialect. It's the world largest language family if we consider in the geographical area. So it is from the geographical point of view, from the spread area, it's the world largest language family. Most of the languages spoken within the 10 degree of the equator, 10 degree north south of the equator. Vietnamese, Burmese, Malaysia, all these are dialect of Austronesian language group. These are the Austronesian, Malaysia, Polynesia, Micronesia. Those are the part of Pacific Ocean, Southern Pacific, and a smaller segment of Indian Ocean, Java, Sumatra, Madagascar, Borneo, Philippines, Taiwan. Those are the part of Indian Ocean. Those island follows the language of Austronesian language group. These language groups. Okay, Main language of Austronesian language groups are the Indonesian language, Madagascari language, Wairi language, Malay language, Javanese language, Philippines language, Batak language, Shundanese language. All these language are included in the Austronesian language group. Okay, but there is a liaison between the Austronesian language group and the scripture writing pattern and the alphabet of the Sanskrit language. There is a liaison. Here I would like to mention that Sumatra, Java, Borneo, the dialect of those area is directly related to the Austronesian language group. In spite of that, there is an influence of Sanskrit script and Sanskrit language, particularly in Javanese text and Javanese language. Before Christ, it's most probably 8 BC, there was a dynasty in central Vietnam. The name of the dynasty was the Champa dynasty. That dynasty was known as the Indo-China dynasty. The Indo-China dynasty of Champa region influenced by the Indian culture, Indian script, that was the Brahmi script and Sanskrit language. That's why lots of impact still observed in the Sumatra and Javanese language in spite of being a part of Austronesian language group. Here I would like to mention that language and patronization of a language by the king is very famous. Champa script is patronized by the Champa dynasty. Brahmi script patronized by the King Ashok in 3rd BC. That's why there is an impact of Indian culture in Indian script, Indian Brahmi script in Sumatra and Javanese language. Now come to the Afroasian language. Afroasian language is the oldest language group. It's divided. It's also known as Semito-Hamitic by Semito-Hamitic language. These language groups observed in the northern part of Africa, rather northern part of Sahara Desert, and that was the part of that was the part African part, and in Asian part Yemen. Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, part of Saudi Arabia and Jordan, and adjacent areas of Red Sea. This is the geographical location of Afro-Asian language. This language groups basically the vocal language. It's used in colloquial conversation. The scripture of this language comes in the end of 19th century, end of the 19th century. And most popular language of Afro-Asian language group are the Egyptian, Omatic, Semitic, and the Arabic. Okay, here I would like to mention one mythological story. Before 1860, there is no differences between the Hamitic and Semitic language. There is a mythological story that the Noah has two sons, Ham and Sem. The language derived from Ham is Hamitic and language derived from Sem is Semitic. It's a mythological story. It's an Afro-Asian language group. Now come to the Dravidian language group. Uh, Speciality of the Dravidian language group is that it is not directly related to the any language group of the world. But in spite of that, southern part of India uh, widely used this language. Here we like to mention that Sri Lanka's national language is the language of a Dravidian language group. The lots of people of Southeast Asia practice this language, and this is also a living language. Lots of literary work developed by this language. Telugu, Tamil, Malayalam and Karnataka are the four main language of Dravidian language groups. And here I would like to mention that Marathi is not the Dravidian language group. It's a descendant from the North Indian language group, that is the Sanskrit language group. Though it's those four languages, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam and Kannada, are the official language of four states of India: Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Kerala and Karnataka. Dravidian language groups is very unique, and the characteristics and its scripture pattern is quite different from the rest of the world language group. But in association of North India and South India through a long period, there is an impact of Sanskrit language in the Dravidian language scripture. Though Telugu, Tamil, Malayalam and Kannada have separate script for the separate language. Those are the basic scenario of world language group. Here I would like to conclude my lecture with saying that about a specific language, that is the Santali language. We are all familiar that the Santali language is central India in the part of West Bengal, Jharkhand, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh. It's a very popular language among the Santal community. This language is very similar to the Vietnamese language. In spite of being staying in India, in spite of being an ethnic people of India, this language is very similar to the Vietnamese language. So language is related to migration of the people, ancient cultural exchange of the people. So it's very difficult to make a clear-cut boundary within the language group. Basically, it's related to the ancient pattern of migration and the cultural exchange among the human group.